Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time and depending when you're going to be seeing this video. It's your brother, your boy, courserepscorner. Like I always tell you guys, it's my corner, it's your corner, and it's our corner.
I don't wanna fall in love. I just wanna have some fun, yeah. I don't wanna fall in love.
You know, our practice space has actually shrunk. It has so shrunk to the point that you can't even go to Kaduna the way we used to do back in the years to practice because of the things that happened between Abuja, between Suba and Kaduna. I could leave back in the years at 5 a.m. and I will arrive Kaduna before our colleagues in Kaduna will come to court, do my matter, leave Kaduna alone in the car and drive back from 8 p.m. I will arrive around 10 p.m. in the night without any fear of anything happening. You could even have a flat tire alone. You stop, bring out your jack, replace your tire, and continue without any fear of any kind of molestation. That is no longer the case. So that practice area has actually shrunk. But then again, you will discover that with us living in a global village, we now have just one standard of practice. What you do in Singapore, what is done in the New York, what is done across the world is now the place where you practice. And so it is important for us to not only realize that, but to continue to prepare ourselves, equip ourselves, and put ourselves in a place where we would continue to remain globally competitive. And the other man that has dwarfed me is just walking into the room too. You know, Alex talked about one man that is above 6'8". He just walked into the room. And I gave him a challenge yesterday. I said, well, that I have a title of TMIB after SAN. I don't know if any one of you know that. So, no. TMIB is tallest member in Aba, in addition to SAN. And I said to him, there is a record yet unbeaten that I stand as the tallest president of the NBA so far. So I threw a challenge to him. I said, that one record, I'm waiting for you to beat it. So go and do what you have to do to come here so you beat this record. So I've ceded that one to you, Doctor, and you, Folarin. You are always happy standing around me, just like I'm always pleased to stand around Mr. Ferdinand Obi. You know, so that is the place where we live today, and we have to be conscious of all of that. You know, those that preceded us decided to put Section 2 of the Legal Practitioners Act in order to protect the legal space for us. But that is the reality back then. Today, our reality is different. The practice space, within the context of the restrictions that I talked about, has been opened up globally. So what do? Should we continue to maintain strict application of the provisions of Section 2 of the Legal Practitioners Act? Or we open up the legal space and allow, for instance, the exchange of legal services between the UK and Nigeria? We need to strike a balance. And why do I say so? We have younger ones here that we need to prepare in order to be competitive in that space. Because by the time we begin to enter into partnership with UK, you know that there is imbalance in that partnership with respect to legal services. We are not in that place yet, much as I recognize the fact that we have to open up our legal space. We have the responsibility of protecting the legal space for the younger generation of young lawyers. Otherwise, we would lose the space completely. And the jobs that are meant for us, our colleagues from outside of jurisdiction, under the guise of globalization, will come and take up those jobs because foreign investors that are coming to invest in this country will rather come with them than come to hire us to provide those services that our colleagues would do. And you know nobody is going to compromise standards for you. And that is why, again, I must thank the section of legal practice in that deliberate efforts in building the capacity of our colleagues. It is all geared towards making sure that when the time eventually comes, when we can open up our space and compete favorably with our colleagues from all parts of the world, we will do so and we will not be subdued. We don't want to create another opportunity for another kind of colonization. And I must thank the section on legal practice in this respect. You know, we have signed the agreement with respect to the African Continental Free Trade Area. We are a member, we are in it. It is a realization of the fact that we would suffer defeat even though we are the largest bar on the continent of Africa. But if we don't prepare ourselves getting into that free trade agreement and the free trade area, it means that we would simply, with all the potentials that we have in this country, we would have succeeded only in providing market, prosperity and empowerment for our colleagues that are within the continent of Africa if we don't prepare ourselves to take advantage of this country as the largest economy on the continent of Africa. And that is why we decided to set up an African Continental Trade Agreement working group with the terms of reference to do an assessment of that agreement. What are the opportunities available to us as members of the Nigerian legal profession within the continental area? And then to identify, areas and things that we need to do in order to create proper legislative interventions. Do we need to make laws so that we would guide sort of jobs that throw themselves up for us to grab? Should we do it in such a way that we will protect our own space, protect those opportunities without also reneging on the agreement that we've entered? It's something that we have to do, and we have to do it consciously and deliberately. We are churning out our colleagues in thousands every year. The jobs are not there. The traditional practice is not what we do, anymore. And so we have to begin to sensitize our colleagues about the emerging areas of practice and get our colleagues to understand that you can actually also work on the go. I know that my grandfather, at some point, if you don't sit in a particular place he has provided as an office, it means that you are not working. But Grandpa, times have changed. Our colleagues now can work with their devices on their hands. We have smart, very resourceful, very energetic, intelligent colleagues that can give you a brief of argument in 2 hours using their phones. Because the authorities they need to cite, the authorities they need to research on, are accessible to them on their phones. And they don't need to sit at a particular place to deliver on that assignment. That is the generational shift that we are experiencing. And they are the best to understand the language of this global village that we are living in today. So what are we doing to make sure that our colleagues are empowered and given the opportunity to have the fullest expression of the capacities and the excellence that they carry? So that if you see them sitting in a Starbucks, taking coffee and working, you don't think that they are just idling away doing nothing. But so we need to also strike a balance between that freedom that our colleagues do have because of the understanding of the importance and what technology has trusted on us, and also the discipline that comes with the older generation. And I must say this, and it is without any intention of demeaning our colleagues. You need my grandpa, Malam Yusuf Ali, to bring the resources. And what did I say, colleagues? Bring the resources. Malam Yusuf Ali, my grandfather, has the resources to support the younger generation, to bring out the best inside of them. So I would admonish that when you see people like Grandpa, without giving up what the generational traits that you have that allows you to be very free with your grandparents or with your seniors, also show respect, because that is the only way you can elicit that support, that empowerment from them. And together we will deploy the resources and the energy that you have for us to make the impact in this country. And so what have we done as the Nigerian Bar Association? By the special grace of God, we've come up with the Remuneration Order 2023, and that is supposed to help us organize ourselves. That is to help us also structure our ability to charge fees across borders. Across borders. Where is across borders? And I must always, when I see Mr. Shehu Abimbola, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, I must recognize the efforts and the commitments this gentleman made along with other members of that committee in putting this order together, which was passed and has already been gazetted and circulated. So please insist when your clients come to you that you have a regulation that tells you how to charge your fees. And that is how you begin to learn how to charge fees within the borders, and then you can extend it across the border. And like I said, the only way we can function well, when I talked about not letting money, how much you charge, be the motivation for the services that you render. I'm simply talking about being ethical and professional. And you know, we've been bombarded, if I may use that expression, by regulatory authorities about anti-money laundering. Lawyers are the ones that are standing on our way of the fight against money laundering and counter-terrorism. That is totally false. That is totally false. We don't need someone who simply read one course somewhere, and because of the privilege of being in a regulatory agency, come to tell us about the fight against corruption. The fight against corruption is a legal fight, and only lawyers can fight that fight. And you and I are the ones that are positioned to fight that particular fight. So quit telling us that we are the ones standing on your way in the fight against corruption. We are in that fight, and to demonstrate that commitment and good faith, we decided to bring in anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing guidelines into the rules of professional conduct. That is to say, we will self-regulate ourselves in this regard. We don't need you from outside, and you can't even do that. Given the prevailing extant, regulations and rules, you cannot do that. So we will self-regulate ourselves to let you know that we understand these things better, and we understand the responsibility on us by reason of the privilege of being lawyers. We will self-regulate ourselves, and we would be at the vanguard of this fight against money laundering and counter-terrorism financing across this country. And so we've decided to do that. That also has been gazetted, and it's to take effect on the 1st of January 2024. We have decided to have it structured in that way so that we would first and foremost understand the guidelines, put together and put in place all the structures that we need to establish for the effective implementation of that particular rules of professional conduct. So it becomes even like a part of our lifestyle to actually fight corruption. And finally, talking about our responsibilities as lawyers. May I take the liberty now to invite, where is Mrs. Badejo? Mrs. Badejo, please come upstage. And is Mazi Afam Osigwe around? He's not. She's been introduced earlier as the alternate chair of the annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association of the Conference Planning Committee. And the theme of this year's conference is getting it right, charting the course for Nigeria's nation building. And I say again, this thing looks like pride, but you know it's no pride. You remember the lion that roared in the jungle, and he made a statement. He said, no matter the economy of the jungle, I will not eat grass. And he went on to say that this is no pride, it is simply who I am. So when we talk about we as lawyers having the singular privilege and honor to drive the recovery of this nation, the reformation of this nation, the reforming, the reposition of this nation, it is not out of pride. We are simply acknowledging the nature that we carry by reason of the privilege of that trade. And that is why getting it right is the business of lawyers. Charting the course for Nigeria's nation building is the business of lawyers. You remember what Safara Williams said, that a legal practitioner lives for the direction of his people and for the advancement of the cause of his country. So if these two reasons are not part of why you are living, you are not a lawyer. So to find fulfillment and accomplishment, we have to embark on this responsibility. And that is why this is meant to serve as a reminder to all of us that this is our primary call, and we are not going to shirk this responsibility. Enough of the abdication. We have come back on track, and we are going to provide direction to our people. We are going to provide every support that we need to advance the cause of this nation. And I thank you, Mrs. Badejo, for that good job that you are doing. I know you may want to say something to our colleagues, but because time is fast spent, anyway, as president of the bar, I would exercise my fiat to give you 1 minute. But before I do that, you know, when I talked about, I mentioned my grandfather and I said I would say something about him. It's important for us to always not have seniors create borders around the knowledge of law that they have. Seniors should be accessible by the juniors in all respects. This idea that you are a senior advocate, you are in the office, and your juniors can only see you once in a month is surrounding. So, on a particular day in Sokoto, I was driving my grandfather and Mr. Tundeednut, senior advocate of Nigeria, from the office. We just left court, went to my office, and I was taking them to the airport. And you know, I'm not a negligent or careless driver. I was minding my driving, but my ears were on the conversation going on between them. And then suddenly there was a little quiet in the car, and suddenly Grandpa said, "Didi, do you know that there is no foolproof judgment?" He said, "If you knock hard enough, you will find a ground of appeal." I said no word, but that struck me. And I had a bundle of records. I compiled the record. I didn't find a ground of appeal by the time I did that. I just know this omnibus ground is very useful. At least you can do that to start the process of compilation of record of appeal. I submitted the record, transmitted. I didn't know what to do. But once I had this issue, I went back. The first thing I did was to pick that record, sat on the table, and started from page 1 of the record. Lo and behold, triggered by that conversation, that statement that was not made to me, but simply because I had genius who didn't create borders around their knowledge. And I was available to listen into that conversation. I had something. I went back, I did something, picked my record, pages of that record I opened, I found a ground-up. And that was what I used to earn the fees that I was paid. And Grandpa, I may not have sent any royalty to you, but I made money out of that. And it was from that conversation. And what did I see? The process, the originating process was signed by a law firm. I missed it. I took it for granted that that is not an important page. Let me go to the proceedings and the judgment. But because he said so, and I was available, I was also ready and open to learn, I picked it and I made money. That is why I must be concluding this my remarks. Please call on our seniors. Stop building barricades around yourselves. Allow the juniors to have access to you. And also pass on this knowledge freely.